All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now we're going to talk about Jorge Masvidal, maybe my favorite fighter in the entire world. I love me some Masvidal, and I'm going to give him some props right now. I'm going to give him some props, and we're going to talk about the lay of the land and why he's calling people out specifically. Now, first thing that I realized, I actually started filming this video like a couple minutes ago, and I got to minute 3, made a connection in my mind. I was like, oh, that has to be at the front of the video. And this is that. Now, Jorge Masvidal has made more money as a fighter who does not have a belt than any other UFC fighter in history, except maybe Nate Diaz. And if you factor in Nate or Dustin, those are both connected to Conor McGregor, okay? So of any fighter who didn't hold a belt, Jorge Masvidal on his own has made the most money in the history of the sport, okay? Now, I don't know exactly what he made, and Dustin might have kind of overcome that in this last fight, but that's related to Conor. Nate Diaz, also related to Conor. Masvidal did it himself, like by himself with no shine from Conor. Very impressive, and something that everybody should just notate, okay? In the history of the UFC, he has made the most money out of any unbelted fighter. Very impressive. Now, so when you think about that, and you look at what he's doing now, at least in this channel where we don't, X's and O's are cool, but the fight's going to end up happening and never ends up playing out exactly as everybody thought. Well, that's not true. Sometimes it does. But like, there's a million channels for that. What do we talk about here? We talk about business, okay? We talk about business, strategy, fight game. That's what we talk about here. And as it relates to that, when Jorge Masvidal says something, there's strategy behind it. There's always strategy behind it when it comes to him. The thing is, for a guy who's as famous as Jorge, he doesn't talk that much, Like, I mean, I know he has his own channel and stuff, but like as it relates to like making statements that he knows are going to get into the MMA press and drive a specific outcome, he doesn't do that very much. So when he does do it, if this is the part of the game that interests you like it is for me, you got to look at it and go, okay, what's he driving at? What's he thinking? Because everything he does is strategic. So what's he thinking, right? Now, in this case, I think I can tell you exactly what he's thinking, right? So here's the lay of the land, right? You got Colby Covington about to fight Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman just beat Masvidal twice. But if Colby Covington wins, what have I been saying? How many times have I said this, right? Who is Colby Covington going to fight immediately if he beats Kamaru? Answer, Jorge Masvidal. That is what is going to happen. So Jorge needs to get a win, right? He needs to get a fight, needs to get a win. So now, obviously, Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards are both very tough fights, but they're fights where if he wins, he'll get a title shot against Colby for 100% sure. And I would imagine what may have happened is him and Malky, Malky manages him. So maybe they had a conversation with the UFC and thinking through the money fight with Colby. It's possible the UFC told them, like, there's no way we can have Jorge jump the line to fight Colby over Leon Edwards unless he goes and gets a win. That's what I think is probable, right? Is like, So Masvidal finds out, coming off 2 losses, even if Colby calls for that fight, which he would, because that would be one of the biggest fights ever. And I'm doing a moratorium on things that I think about their beef, but I think I've made pretty clear that I think that, never mind. Anyway, so Colby's going to call out Masvidal. Masvidal has to be in a position to take that fight. So Masvidal needs a fight. He needs a fight against a contender. If he beats one of these guys, he gets a title shot against Colby if Colby wins. That's that simple. Okay. And so he calls out 2 guys because in this game, all of a sudden, there's this weird thing where, a guy can call out another guy where the fight makes perfect sense, right? And the guy that he calls out is like, meh, I'm not going to fight him. Like, as a matter of fact, the Chandler and Gaethje thing, that was awesome. Like, that was awesome. I did an entire video about why I thought Gaethje wouldn't take that fight until Dustin was for sure going to take the Oliveira fight. But nonetheless, the way it played out was Chandler calls out Gaethje, which is such a gangster-ass call-out. You know what? I actually haven't said this. I said this to Chandler in a message. I haven't said this to the world yet. I'm going to take this moment right now to say it. Can everybody just give it up for how gangster that is? Like, Chandler called out Gaethje, right? Like, who the hell wants Gaethje? Like, who wants to fight Justin Gaethje, man? That's one of those fights where, like, you might look and say, this is I have a way, there's this, that, or the other where I can beat him. But I don't think there's any other fighter that you are more certain to get hurt fighting against than Justin Gaethje. Straight up. Like, I will stand, I'm saying that right now without really running through the roster, but I can say pretty confidently, there is no one where more certainly that you are going to get hurt in that fight. Like, you're going to get fucking hurt, man. You might win, maybe, but you're going to take pain first. And Chandler, I mean, if I know that, of course Chandler knows that. And he called him out anyway. And then Gaethje took it because Gaethje's a gangster. I was realizing, like, in these videos, sometimes I'm like, man, do I sound like I'm not giving Gaethje respect? Because somehow, I'm like, oh, Chandler, like, if you beat Gaethje, then you get a title shot here. Like, I think it's good policy here that I'm like, hey, Chandler, gangster for calling out Gaethje. And also Gaethje, if anybody thinks that I don't respect that guy's game, I picked him over Khabib. I thought he was going to beat Khabib. Honestly, I mean, in hindsight, picking anyone over Khabib is obviously the incorrect call. But dude, Gaethje's going to put it on you before seriously, like, here's the other thing. Raise your hand if you've ever taken a full throttle leg kick, okay? Now, if you have, watch Gaethje kick someone's legs and just imagine, dude. There's no amount of conditioning that can make that not hurt so fucking bad, dude. Anyway, I'm sidetracked. So, Masvidal calls out two guys because he can't be sure that either of them will accept the fight. Burns, he's confident probably will, but he wants Leon, right? He wants the Leon Edwards fight. A, it's a more favorable matchup, and B, they've got that, they can hype the shit out of that fight, right? Like, and Leon also is the number one contender, right? So he's trying to get to where he's positioned to get the next title shot if Colby wins. That's what he's doing. But he was smart in calling out to you, like I said, because Leon thinks that he can just sit on the sidelines and wait. And I'm saying he doesn't understand this game. He just doesn't understand it. Like, he does not understand this game if that's what he thinks, right? He might end up getting it. It's possible, but it's also possible he doesn't. Because listen, like, I talk about this all the time, but I really, really want to make, like, I actually wrote this in a message to Chandler, and I was like, have I ever said this way in a video? I don't think I have. So look at it like this, okay? People looking at the fight business, the UFC, like it's a college wrestling tournament, do not understand what they're looking at. Like, and I understand it's people fighting, it seems like there's some kind of hierarchy where they get to themselves, hey, why isn't that guy fighting this guy? It doesn't seem fair. That's not what you're looking at. You're looking at a business, okay? The UFC is a business, okay? The college wrestling, that is a sport that lacks any capitalist incentive. There's no money. It makes no difference. Who wins is going to have no impact on next year's jerseys or the revenue to the college. It has no impact. There's no alternative incentive. The UFC is 100% driven by an alternative incentive than what you're looking at in college wrestling. That's why I don't understand. I don't understand how anyone doesn't see that. Okay, the UFC is in the business of putting on fights that people will pay to watch. It's that simple. It is that simple. And if you think about it like this, the hierarchy that leads to the belt is not in any capacity the same as college wrestling. That is just a mechanism to make people want to pay to watch, okay? The only driving metric is how many people will pay to watch this fight. And so having a belt holder, having a champion, and then having people fight to become the number one contender and all that is all a mechanism of building more people that will pay to watch the fight. If you think it's the other way around, you don't understand the business you're in. You're wrong. Like, there's not, like, I'm not, like, if you think that you have an alternative opinion on this, I'm telling you, don't write it in the comments, because you're wrong. Like, you're just wrong. This is 100%, there is no other answer. I'm correct about this. And anyone in the fight business will validate this, okay? Now, when you think through, like, but if a person wins this many fights, they have to get a shot. The only reason that's true is because if someone wins so many fights and they still don't get a title shot, it invalidates the hierarchy that leads to title shots, okay? The hierarchy has to be valid. It has to be valid for people to buy into it and then ultimately want to pay for pay-per-views. That's the only reason it matters, okay? So you win 8 fights in a row, and then they go on Instagram and they hashtag Leon Edwards to see how many people have hashtagged him, because there are simple ways to drive interest in a fighter. And they're like, this guy will drive no pay-per-views. Like, this guy will drive no pay-per-views. Then, and you go to another guy who has gone 2-2 in his last few fights, but you hashtag him and you're like, dude, this guy's going to bump us 600,000 pay-per-views. They will look for any reason. And when I say they, I mean me. If I was running the organization, I would find any reason to give the other guy the title shot, because I'm not in the business of building champions. I'm in the the business of selling fights. Okay, I'm in the business of making people pay or having people want to pay to watch the event that I'm putting on. I'm not in the business of validating people's, am I really the best in the world? Like, yeah, that's cool. The only reason that we even have that is because it drives viewership, okay? Like, your dream is not connected to my business metrics. You know what I mean? And so, like, that's the part that Leon Edwards does not, not just Leon, I'm using him as an example because he's kind of right in front of me, but all fighters that don't understand that that's what they don't get. You can't just sit back on your wins and just go, wow, I'm doing a great job in my career. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're doing a great job in one facet of your career, which is the most important, of course. But if you're doing nothing else, you are blowing it. Okay? You're blowing it. And if you don't have the gift, where someone can just go, here, hey, Jesse, talk about making t-shirts. Oh, you want me to talk about making t-shirts? How about I tell you a story about when I tried to start a t-shirt business? You want to know what people don't know about that? Cost blah, 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 and just fucking vomit out bullshit. Okay, if you don't have that skill, that's fine. Okay, everyone doesn't need to be Conor McGregor. There are simple ways to drive engagement where people will think about you. You see the guy the other day, Jordan, who, well, I'm not going to take credit for this, but like, I literally just did a video about this, about building, create a situation where you save someone from blow, and the next day there's someone trying to steal his car and it gets caught on video. Now, I'm not saying that wasn't real. I'm just saying it validated the point that I made the day before, because everyone saw it. They're all, oh, look at this guy. This guy was trying to, run away with his car, and he caught him and threw him out, and it's like, okay, cool. Now I know that fighter's name. This is not rocket science. Like, this is really not rocket science, The world is so fucking gullible. It's unreal. They'll believe anything. They'll literally believe anything. Just think of something. Social media is like the gift that no one could have even imagined 30 years ago as it relates to building hype for yourself. It is the easiest thing ever. You're already a check mark. If you're in the UFC, you are a check mark, which means you're on a different algorithm, which means that anything you post is going to go viral if it's something that people are interested in. Okay? Different algorithm, check mark algorithm, different. Okay, you get the check mark, put something interesting up. So I just really got derailed in this video, but you get the point I'm making. Like, so Leon is not in position to get a title shot, and he should fight Masvidal. Because guess what? If Gilbert Burns and Masvidal fight, and Masvidal wins, and Colby wins, you think Leon Edwards is getting the title shot? He's not. Masvidal's getting it, because Masvidal is a genius at this stuff. Masvidal's been a big name forever. And why is that? Because he went viral on the internet, fighting backyards. Like, Masvidal's understood the game from Jump Street. Now, maybe that's where he learned it when he was 18 years old and beat the shit out of the guys in the backyard. I mean, maybe that's how he learned. Oh, okay, I got the game now. Maybe that's why he's the best at this, But he is the best at this, which is why he will jump the line and get a title shot, So, again, if Leon Edwards wants the next title shot, fight Masvidal, especially because of the backstory. You can solve this problem. The problem that you have, you can solve it right now. Everyone has seen it when it's leading up to the fight. Bam, bam, bam. And they're like, oh, if you go in and you beat Masvidal, now you've got a profile. You're the guy that got beat up backstage, or got sucker punched however you want to frame it, and you avenged it in the octagon. Now you got profile. Take the Masvidal fight. I mean, or just let Gilbert Burns and Masvidal fight it out. Because then, look. Let me think about this actually. Okay, so I'm just trying to make the point, and I'm not actually thinking through Leon Edwards' current situation. So here's the thing: if Kamaru Usman beats Colby, Leon Edwards actually is in position to probably get the next title shot. So there's that. But Kamaru has already said they don't want to fight him. They said that if Nick Diaz beats Robbie Lawler, then they're going to fight him. And why wouldn't you? Remember what we talked about? We're not in college wrestling. Nick Diaz hasn't fought in 6 fucking years. But Ali Abdelaziz, who's a brilliant manager, is advising Kamaru. And Kamaru obviously is smart enough to know too. They're like, would you rather fight Leon Edwards, who's really dangerous, for $4 million? Or would you rather fight Nick Diaz, who's much less dangerous, for $8 million? It's a fucking no-brainer, dude. And of course, the UFC has the same metric, driving pay-per-views. So anyway, Masvidal's a genius. Leon Edwards is one decision from potentially, blooming his career. And the UFC now, if you guys thought you were looking at a college wrestling, tournament, now you know why you're not. Or at least if you were listening. Anyway, if you like the content, subscribe, ring the bell. Peace.